Owen Morton's goal, then we would have worked in a couple of setups with Cluck over the years, and Michael Savage with St Vincent as well. In that situation, if I was Tig Morley, I would be timing when to step up, but I'd be waiting for the call from behind me, and I'm going to force the ball carrier, if you're coming through on goal, I'm going to force you to give a kind of a lob pass as best as possible, not let you go past me, and Cluck was going to come out.
I'm not finished yet, it took me a long time to get here.
Both players have spoken with each other.
Okay, lads, so the league continues to deliver. So there was a stat on the RTE website, 56% of the games so far have been won by a single score or less, or by 3 or less. Isn't that great stuff? We're talking on Monday about the different comebacks. Fermanagh with a great comeback against Roscommon, Laois coming back against Roscommon, Kerry against Galway, Cavan against Westmeath twice. You just don't get that in the championship, don't you not? You don't get those to and fro and one team winning, the other team coming back. You don't get really comebacks because so much of the championship is predictable. And hopefully when the new championship restructure is voted on, we could have all this excitement in the summer when the fields are hard, when every team is at championship pitch, and we can have comebacks, we can have excitement. The numbers for the podcast here will go through the roof.
most importantly.
Most importantly. But isn't it great?
It is great, and that's probably the last couple of National League campaigns has probably fed into that dialogue to create a two-tiered or a divisional kind of championship, bit like the Champions League and the soccer, which will give us higher quality games. But the National League is probably our best competition outside of maybe the semi-finals of the All-Ireland in the football, because everything else is even the Super 8s have been somewhat lacklustre. I know they restructured it this year so that there wasn't any kind of dead duck games for the third game. It's been hugely exciting, in fairness.
It definitely has.
But the evidence has been there for years as well, and it's not just the National League as well. You mentioned others. Ger mentioned Champions League. It's in other sports as well that, like, you'd swear that when you get evenly matched teams together, do you know why have we been blind to it for so long, that like when you get the evenly matched teams, you're going to have more competitive games?
Yeah, it works in the hurling.
That's it. And like the thing that annoys me kind of most about the tier 2 kind of debate when it comes to championship as well is that the counties that are in Division 3 or Division 4, that they won't get the same chance at the All Ireland as, you know, the counties that are in Division 1 and Division 2. But like we've seen the reason why is because that when they do, they just get subject to these one-sided games that, like in the middle of the summer, as you said, when that should be the time for, you know, the best games to happen. So I don't know, like with this mounting evidence and the tier 2 about to come in this summer, you'd like to think that somebody will see sense and make this the kind of main competition.
I think it should. I think that's it's obviously one of the proposals, and we hope that goes through, because it always annoys me when you've the hurling people saying, oh, the hurling championship is much better, and you're like, yeah, because Limerick play Tipperary in the first round, and they're all Ireland contenders. We get hammerings for the first until we get into August. Sure, you're not comparing like with like. We need Division 1 teams playing each other, and then we have a comparison. Great news for Tyrone. So the news broke last night that Cathal McShane, we called it here on the show, we said don't panic about this, he's too old. This is too much of a risk. He's not really, by the time he makes it and starts earning any decent money, and that's already a big risk, he won't get that many years earning decent money. Do you know, I'd say Cathal weighed all that up. I'd say somebody potentially from Tyrone might have come in and says, here, we'll give you a really good job. I hope that would have happened. And maybe Cathal used this potential thing, nice little holiday for a trial, and a potential leverage to get looked after in Tyrone. And if he did, more power to him.
Was he 10 days over there?
I'm not sure how long he went.
He was meant to go over for anyway, which doesn't seem like a particularly long period of time, but it seemed up in the air until last night that whether he was going to stay around or not. But because I said to Conor this morning, actually, he goes, he must have been listening to the show, because we know Tiernan McCann does, because we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. And just as you said, how long it was going to take.
Tiernan McCann said to him, Tiernan listens, he does a lot of commuting with his job, he's on the road, and maybe Tiernan rang Cathal and went, mate, you're too old.
Willie said this.
By the time you start earning decent money, you'll have to retire. Injuries could play a part. Stay with us.
Didn't Ron O'Gara do that? He was coming up to a contract renewal with the RFU, and he was on holidays. He went to an American football game, the Patriots, and through, I think, maybe
he never went.
No, he ever did he go to a game?
Kicker.
But he met the owner, I think through Frankie Sheen, or he met somebody just going to a game, and people saw them together and said that God, he must be in talks to go over to be a kicker. So Gara said, sure, I'll let this kind of unfold, I'll say nothing, and it might help me my contract.
He did, because it was not long after Brian O'Driscoll did the same thing with the owner of, I think it was Bordeaux or Biarritz at the time. Made a big show of going to a Heineken Cup game, met the owner, made sure he was photographed, and then bam, 2 weeks later he gets this bumper eye or a few contracts.
Yeah, no, that was it. I think somebody from that American
Me and Conor were on a podcast the other day.
Ronan O'Gara told me the story about this on Sports July, but I can't remember. I think the fella just visited Ireland or so. I think there was something completely innocuous about this, the way, but he did. He probably used it to his advantage. Aidan O'Rourke's talking on. He does a piece on RTE, which I read every week. And this is a bit out there. I don't think any of us are going to agree with this. But listen, I can see where he's coming from. He's talking about Sean O'Shea playing at centre half back for Kerry. Now, anyone watch Sean O'Shea marking Brian Fenton will go, marking someone who's probably not high up on Sean O'Shea's list of priorities. I think if Sean O'Shea is centre half back for Kerry playing against Dublin, who's he going to be marking? Ciarán Kilkenny? That's a bloodbath. So I can see where Aidan O'Shea, obviously thinking about his great football brain, his distribution, his class on the ball, and the potential for him to give good ball into the forwards. But that would be negated, surely, playing against the good teams where there's no hiding place for someone who's not prepared to mark his man.
In 2011, the All-Ireland semi-final against Donegal, where they obviously went ultra defensive, except for Colin McFadden was outrageous that day. I think we might have won 8-6. Michael Murphy was in his half-back line the whole time. And if they had been more adventurous, they could have possibly taken us that particular day. But as a former centre-back, you're looking at the likes of Sean O'Shea, the talent he has. If he's in the half-back line, I'm absolutely thrilled. In his own half-back line, rather, you're absolutely thrilled. I think that would be a waste. I know Seamus Moynihan, he had a piece with...
He disagreed, yeah.
What's the lady's name? Marie Crowe with RTE2 yesterday. Talked about the decision as well, but he certainly disagreed. You want to have your better forwards up front. I know defensively Kerry have been a bit open the last couple of games and even during last year's championship, but that's probably the style of football Kerry play as well.
Could there be potential for him to play centre half back potentially against Donegal, but not against Dublin? Do you get me? Because against Donegal he'll have a free role. And it's nice, it's good. Ciarán Kilkenny used to play wing back, for example, with Dublin, against very defensive teams. I know the game is moving against that, away from that.
He's such a good player, he could play anywhere, but he's not an out defender. No. You want your more prolific forwards further up the field, and you want the dogs closer to your own goal, and that's just the way you got to set up your team. But would he do a good job back there? He would. Last year in the Dublin Championship, the manager of St Vincent's trialled Dermot Connolly centre back.
How did that go?
That's the same thing.
Not very well.
Not very well at all.
We had to succeed you. That was the problem.
Yeah. But
so what was Dermot doing wrong? Was he just holding the middle and spraying balls? Obviously, that's what he wanted him there for. In theory, you can see where that's coming from too. But
teams were dropping off against him, so against us a lot of the time, playing the Donegal style defence. And sure, Dermot had 20-30 yards of space, but sure, any relatively decent Division 1 footballer would be able to spray balls around to the pockets in front of that massive fence. But you wanted Dermot or Sean O'Shea getting the ball on the opposition's 50, who was able to spray the ball through the eye of a needle 20-30 yards closer, whereas the most centre backs or backs wouldn't have that precision that like Sean O'Shea or Dermot would have had.
No, I completely agree.
And even if they were to do it against Donegal, like Donegal maybe, in the McGuinness era, pre-2014, let's say, if they were to do it against Donegal this year, Stephen Rochford and Declan Bonner would, come up with a system to not allow Sean O'Shea to dictate it from there. I'd say Donegal would become that adaptable that they'd probably change their tactics, say, well, if they're putting them back there, we have to have a centre forward who will run him ragged and make sure that he doesn't have the time to, to be picking pockets left, right and centre. Yeah. But I think what Aidan O'Rourke is probably talking about is going back to a bygone is a bit much, but like an era I remember maybe mid-90s to mid-2000s where Ciarán McGeaney, this man beside me, the real kind of a stopper centre back that could also play ball. That nearly the best of them. The game revolved around them. The game revolved around Ciarán McGeaney when he was at his best, I thought. But I think that the game has moved on. to a certain degree. That doesn't really happen anymore. Like teams defend and attack as units, and you're not as reliant on that pivot at 6 to be kind of dictating everything, both from a defensive and an attacking point.
Well, that's the point, and he named them out. So he named Henry Downey, he named Seamus Moynihan, he named Kieran McGeeney, he named Graham Canty, he named Carl Lacey, all dominating centre backs who consistently play.
Did not name me there.
He didn't say, didn't give you a
I
shout.
give text there.
But then I was thinking, like, who are the regular centre backs on any team now? Kerry don't have one. They swap it around. Dublin don't have one. You could have Johnny Cooper one day. You could have James McCarthy another day. You could even have like Davy Byrne centre back. Like, they just don't mind who plays centre back. Tyrone don't have one. They're constantly chopping and changing. Donegal don't have one. They have a young Conor O'Donnell playing there the last 2 games this year in the league. Monaghan don't have one. Haven't had one. Galway have been playing John Daly this year, but under Garrett Bradshaw maybe was their centre back, but they had no problem changing around. Mayo have Colin Boyle, but again, no Lee Keegan could in. There's no dominating centre back anymore in the game, and I think maybe you're right. I was trying to think of why that is, and I used to love a good centre back, and I think years ago it was because only the centre forwards used to forage deep and go in and try and get breaks, so the centre back kind of would hold back, whereas the 2 wing backs would kind of be watching somebody. So the centre back got on loads of loose ball, and you know what I mean, was on it a bit more, and maybe that's now all 3 half forwards drop back. So the half back line now decides which of us will hold back, Jerry. You know what I mean? Or which of it? There's no kind of person that does it, on their own.
I suppose Conor's right. The game kind of ebbs and flows far more like nearly basketball, the way it can be played on occasion. But depending on the team that you're playing and the way forward Joyce is trying to get Galway to play, he's trying to keep 4 or 5 forwards up there the whole time. Well, then I think you do need a pivot there. You do need a 6 there, a strong character who's able to organise the guys around him, particularly when the Galway forwards have the ball in the opposition's full back line, that if they are turned over, that you're set up and you're ready to take what's coming towards you. Where teams are just pushing up and defending together, or you're playing against a mass defence, you probably just need a +1 standing on your own 45-yard line.
And that doesn't have to be the centre back.
It doesn't have to be the centre back, and I know you've talked about this a couple of times where most teams bring out a corner forward, so maybe the corner back who's marking a corner forward is a ball player, is a wing forward or whatever, and he's picking up ball in the middle of the field. So sometimes it could be that particular player is holding the fort in the 45-yard line and the half back line are pushed down a bit, but it depends who you're playing. The example of Dublin, getting the matchups right is kind of key, and depending who would have played over the years, the different style of defenders that we had, Jim would have tried to match like with like, and depending on who we're playing, it might have resulted in, if Cian O'Sullivan was injured, it might have resulted in a Johnny being centre back, or if you want the Johnny to do a man marking job, it might result in a Davy Byrne kind of holding the fort, or a John Small. But we saw in the All-Ireland final replay this year where Jim, in fairness, changed it around, and Johnny wasn't doing a man marking job.
He played centre back, he was the
back,
sweeping. But that's the thing. So in Dublin's back line now, you just have to be a good footballer, and marking has to be part of it. It's nearly have to be an all-rounder, right? There's no such thing as the traditional full back line and half back line, is there? It's, well,
for me, I think you need a strong character at 3 and a fairly strong footballer at 6, who's an extremely good communicator and who reads the game well, particularly in the centre back role. Having played a couple of games full back with Dublin, remember marking Stephen O'Neill in the National League in Croke Park, like, I was right up his arse, and he scored 4 points off me, like, I said, this is a rotten position. It's like playing a different sport. So I said, can I please go back out?
Oh, listen, I played corner back a few times myself.
It's a different game.
How can anyone enjoy Gaelic football playing back there?
But that's, I'd say, the Rory O'Carrolls of this world. Even
they pride themselves on that.
Neil McGee as well. I know Neil's pushed on a bit, still an excellent defender. But those lads were delighted just getting a hand in, and if they didn't soul the ball all game, I'm sure they were happy enough once the opposite man didn't get it. But no, I think it depends who you're playing. It's more, what would you call it, unstructured in terms of the ebb and flow of Gaelic football. But you do need good central spine, whether It's a strong 6 with a strong kind of holding kind of midfielder.
Yeah, but that's the thing. But they keep swapping it around. I understand your point, and maybe you can even give us the kind of like an idea of what the centre back needs to do for organising, because it's the centre back pretty much traditionally that organises the defence.
Yeah.
But if you keep changing that man around, how can he do that job? Convincingly.
Look, Dublin have an abundance of riches there, certainly at the moment, where you have intelligent guys, well educated. Not saying you have to be well educated, but the lads are. Most senior to county footballers now from the top teams are all going to third level institutions, so they're intelligent guys, and so to have an understanding of the role as a wing back, the role as a centre back. If you end up pushing up the field, taking a shot, and you find yourself playing corner forward for the opposition kick out, you know what you're doing on the opposition press. So you're not sprinting all the way back, getting your breath and you're wrecked, and the lads get a quick kick out and the ball's kicked over your head. So having an understanding of everyone's role in the field. Say
if you're centre back and you see Jack gone, he's put the burners on, and now James decides to go on. Will you shout at McCarthy, say, "Here, James, whoa"? Would that be part of your job?
Well, did we talk about it, or was it in the show notes? We didn't get into it, but the Super Game 2013 All-Ireland semi-final against Kerry, Jack and James were sounds like Jack and Jill going up the field. Jack and James going up the field, and Ger left in his own mark in the gooch for trying to. But so that was actually a case where it was a big game, and there's probably nerves and there was a lack of communication. But it's quite difficult to actually hear anyone in Croke Park when it's packed. So I actually remember with Pat Gilroy, a lot of the training games, in-house games, we used to play 40 minutes of football, like high intensity championship pace football, or as close to it, AB games, and you weren't allowed to talk to anyone on the pitch, and it was just pure silence because he was trying to imitate what you experienced.
Very good, right.
But a bit like Shane O'Neill, what's his name? Keane O'Neill. I love that story. It's a great story.
Well, listen, I attacked that on this show if you ever heard it. Oh, I did. Yeah, I had no time for that nonsense.
Some nonsense.
That was just silly stuff. But that's interesting. So you just played a game in silence to replicate it. Because I remember Muggsy talking before one of the All-Irelands that he used to get a headphone and put in crowd noises to replicate the crowd. When he's taking a free or the jeering noises or whatever. So that's it. So say 2013, you got kind of scapegoated that year. You were was it half time you were taking off?
Half time, yeah.
And you were you dropping off Gooch too much, or were you told to push up on him, or were you following your orders? Because I'd imagine dropping off Gooch because he's such a good passer, your covering job is made a lot more difficult anyway. So
what they did really well, I think Donegal Walsh was giving Jack a bit of a run around. Jack was kind of following them. I can't remember who was on James' wing at the time.
It wasn't Darren O'Sullivan around that time, no.
Could have been, yeah. But the lads were clever. Say we'll isolate Ger. Doesn't have light and pace, so we'll just isolate him with one of the best footballers ever. And so Walsh and if it was Darren O'Sullivan, just vacated. They nearly dropped to their own midfield half back line.
And the two boys followed them.
And we actually weren't supposed to be doing that. And you're trying to say, lads, wouldn't he be tuck in, But that didn't happen. But look, we won. The lads made a call at half time. Management, Keane dropped back. I think Dennis Basta came in midfield. We tightened things up. You'll probably notice the contrast in how we were structured defensively. It was much more zonal for the large part of it.
Right. And to stop Gooch being able to run into those those two spaces either side of him.
Well, I don't care if you're any of those guys Aidan or mentioned, or even Carl Lacey, another super footballer. If you're marking a Division 1 senior county footballer, and he has, like, Croke Park is 90 metres wide, and you're standing in the middle with 4 metres either side to run into, like, with kick passes like Kerry have, that's a pretty challenging task. But it was a good experience. But we got things right for the final, and we got through it. But they're all learnings. But most teams defensively try to keep, say, a +1 at the back, and how that looks for different teams depends on how they want to set up.
I think Dublin learned that lesson obviously the following year against Donegal. That was 2013, when the philosophy was let's just go out and win in a shootout.
Well, there's one. I know I'm not doing a lot of waffling here. There was that semi-final against Donegal. I was injured. It was the best game I never played. I think I got more positive comments about not playing that game.
But again,
I think there was a clip where Rory O'Carroll was marking Michael Murphy, I was in at the game, on R45 on the Cusack stand sideline. And Durkin had his long kick-out flip over the top. One of the McHughes came through.
Yeah.
And
for the third goal, if not 2 goals in Limerick that game,
Yeah.
just literally a fist over the midfield, and the space was there.
Yeah, and at the same time, right?
Jesus, someone get Brennan onto the field.
Yeah, I was eating a cornet or a hot dog. But Dermot Connolly and Paul Flynn had hit a few whopper points from outside the 45. And Dermot actually forced Durkin to a great save for such a big man. I think it was on his left hand. And if that ball had gone in, I think we would have gone maybe 5-6 points
around the ropes.
up.
So that's
and they're on the ropes. And all of a sudden, from the next kick out or two, we were on the ropes. So there's such fine margins.
Yeah.
And what we learned from that game was that there are such fine margins in attack, but you have to be set up defensively for effect up the other end of the field, which we weren't in that particular game, or the first half against Kerry in 2013. But that's where a good centre back or a good communicator comes into it.
Comes into it. Conor, do you have anything that you wanted to say there before I butt it in on you?
No, not particularly when you've somebody as experienced as Jared that is so used to that sixth position. All I was going to say was that you mentioned you mentioned Colin Boyle. Like I would say that and just to get my Mayo speak in here, but like the since the Horan era, say since 2011. Mayo's half back line has been the strongest line, and we all during that, you mentioned Colin Boyle, but I wouldn't even have Colin Boyle as a traditional 6. He's kind of all action. Lee Keegan's not a traditional 6. No. Lee Keegan prefers when he's actually marking somebody, I find, and Donald Vaughan played there in the first few years and he was just a line breaker. So like I think it's kind of nearly a sign of how the game has evolved. Like we mentioned there that like Dublin and Mayo
was more than a half back, I remember
way back in 2000
when the Beachy in 06
he came on as a wing. He was just told to score a goal, but he came on wing back that day. I think he could have been marking Shane Ryan or something.
In around that time he was a wing back,
but just a sign of like that considering that Mayo's half back line has been its best line for that long, and we still really haven't had a recognised centre back, I think is a sign of how
in the traditional sense. Maybe we need to stop talking about centre backs how I kind of remember them, because look, when you're my age and you grew up through the 90s, you have an idea of what a centre back does, and you need to just scramble that from your brain now, and maybe that's the way.
And the 2000s for Jared as well, remember?
And it continued on into the 2000s.
Well, Keane O'Sullivan kept it going, and John Smallden had a few games there, a few All Irelands there as well. But what Keane did really well again was
Keane kind of was nearly a full-time sweeper rather than a centre back.
He was, and again depending on how far, for example, if the opposition had possession on their 45-yard line, Keane might play a +1 on our 45-yard line to stop a forward from into the pockets. And if the opposition moved the ball through the hands and they were getting closer to our midfield or 65-yard line, well, that's where you see Keane was dropping off quite a bit then,
Yeah.
That's the way it worked. And John Small did it quite well too. Yeah.
I think Keane played centre-half back for the 5-6 years when centre-back was the easiest position ever. You literally had no one to worry. You had nobody to worry about.
Outside of Mayo's blueprint, which was effective, but you just used to shoot yourselves in the foot. Or, but in the few drawn games, what have you. But that was the only time where Keane was nearly engaged, because Mayo did try to play 6 up front.
Everybody else dropped somebody back.
Yeah, but you have to engage the centre back as well. Don't let him have a handy.
Yeah, no, exactly. A bit of news from Kerry, lads, is that they went to a county board meeting. We're not going to talk about this again. We all agree the manager should pick the captain. It went to a county board meeting of club delegates and it got defeated. Well, it won 50-48, but it needed a 2/3 majority, so they're going to continue. I find this incredible. So Peter Keane wants to be able to pick his own captain. Now, this is no slight on David Clifford, who will probably be a brilliant captain. It's just, we would have said it before he picked David Clifford. He wants to pick his own captain. Eamon Fitzmaurice before him wants to pick his own captain. Seamus Moynihan, a player, and the Kerry players think it's better if they pick their own captain. And what club delegates vote? We know better than you. What would you guys know? Sure, we're in control here. It just pisses me off about GAA politics that player and management's wishes can be overruled by bloody county board delegates at a county board meeting. It pisses me right off. So they're continuing now that the tail is wagging the dog. And if I was the Kerry manager, I would just pick my own captain. I said, do what you want. If you want that, just get rid of me then. That's what I'm doing. Because Liam Kearns came into Laois and we had that tradition. And Liam Kearns just said, no, absolutely not. I don't remember going to a county board meeting. He just said, no, I'm picking my own. That's not. And he's from Kerry. which was a weird one. Anyways, we don't have time to spend too long on it. It's just the politics. What
of Kerry football make you sick to your teeth.
That's it. The politics of Mayo football make me sick to my teeth. Okay, last but by no means least, we have Keith Ricken, who's the Cork Under-20 manager, and he's also GAA Development Officer in Cork IT. So you've probably come across him, Ger, plenty of times. Sounds like a great character altogether.
Superman.
Is he? Yeah. So I'd never heard of him, to be honest with you. So he was the Cork Under-20 manager last year when they won the All-Ireland. They came back from a disastrous start against Dublin to beat them. They had great team spirit. You don't come back like that without a great team spirit. And they won an All-Ireland that they were not expected to win at the start of the year. Obviously, David Clifford and Sean O'Shea and Foley and these lads playing with the Kerry seniors helped out a lot that way as well. You'd imagine Kerry would have walked that if they had their full team. But anyways, so he had some great quotes. He was across the media. What was the launch he was at? He was at this Sigerson,
the Electric Ireland Sigerson thing, I think.
Something like that. Anyways, so here he is on releasing players. This fella's a breath of fresh air now. He's a relaxed, easygoing sort of fella, and this is what he says on releasing players. You know, I get requested every week to release players, but I laugh at that. It's like I'm a prison warden. I never will and never will stop a lad playing with his club. So fantastic stuff. Release them to your club. It just sounds like it does. It sounds like prison warden language, really, that we're just so used to that's it. Then he talked about underage coaches. I thought this was a great one. He said, he's talking about the underage coaches. It was a mentor from the other team shouting, "Break the tackle, burst out, find a man." He said, and I was saying to myself, I might say that to my 20-year-olds, but these are fellas who believe in fairies, who wet the bed, who do all these things, leave the landing light on until they're 12 or 13. Like, isn't that brilliant? Like, we know at underage games you have parents or mentors who think they're Jim Gavin and think that they're trying to live out these fantasies, you know, through children, and they'd never get a job that are like under 17, mine under 20, because they might not have a clue. But with the under 7s, they're doing a job and they think that they're really important. And I think it's the gas one, shouting instructions at young lads who wet the bed and believe in believe in fairies. So here, this is my favourite one. This is what he says on what young players want, or maybe players in general, the 3 Gs, and I'd never heard this before. He says gear, grub and games. He says they're the 3 Gs and they're what every young fellow wants. In my day, it was a G for girls as well. But now they're so focused on football, so we leave the girls away for a sec. But if you have the gear, grub and games, once you deliver those 3 things, lads are happy. I laughed when I read it. Like, I mean, how many times, Ger or Conor, growing up through teams, what do players give out about? Gear. We've no gear. We never get gear. And if gear lands in, the excitement of it, like, and we've no grub. So if you start getting grub after training, it's a huge thing as well. And then games, we're training, we've no matches, and they're giving out. It is. I don't know if you've heard the 3 Gs before, but it's a good one.
The problem is when it's in that order. When your priorities are gear, grub and games.
I don't think it's necessarily in that order. No. But if you get the gear, you get the grub, you play well in games, you might get the girls.
There you go.
So it might be the fourth one.
Keith Ricken philosophy.
Keith's a great guy. Obviously know him well, and I referenced the lads in DCU last week, Wooly, where we're kind of competing colleges. We're actually quite close, all the GAA officers, in terms of developing games and organising competitions, what have you. Yeah. So a lot of time for Keith, and he's a breath of fresh air. He'd be a great fella on the show. You just want to have a good 2-hour slot available, and only slagging Keith if he's listening, but he is a breath of fresh air. And you could actually, I watched the Munster final, the All-Ireland semi-final, and the All-Ireland final at the under-20s last year. And even the way the Cork players played, they just played like the shackles were off. It was a breath of fresh air. Just go out and play football, play for one another. You get away with it at certainly 20s. Senior, there's a bit more negativity and tactical awareness and dark arts,
and a bit more science involved as well, because you're kind of not too big on backroom teams and, you know, all the hangers on with that kind of stuff as well. But you have to be at senior level. But I do think that a fella like him with younger fellas, because I always found with my underage coaches, we responded well to really liking them. There wasn't really a tactical game back then, but I remember thinking with our minor manager especially, he didn't want to come back with us in 96. He was with us in 95, and we begged him to come back because we just loved him. He was really good to us. And I think young fellas, potentially you get a team spirit around just being really nice to these young lads. You know what I mean? Being like a father figure to them and treating them well.
If you think back, who was your favourite teacher in school? So we all have our favourite.
Yeah.
You probably don't remember what they taught you, what subject was, but you kind of remember how they made you felt, how they made you feel rather. In terms of being encouraging you, driving you on, being sympathetic, being compassionate, not being a dick, not letting you away with too much, but not being nasty to you. And it's the same thing. And particularly when you're working with college students like Keith is as well, it's about focusing on the positives within the individual, and then when someone feels loved, they feel happy, they feel like they belong. And I know we're getting airy fairy.
No, it's true.
It's not a spiritual podcast.
But you want to win for someone that you really like.
Exactly. Yeah,
exactly. It's not rocket science.
Yeah. And you can see that with the way Cork players played. I see that in the way Cork IT players play. When we play against them, unfortunately, UCC get a lot of the better players, just the way of the world. But they give it everything for Keith. And when you have a manager like we've all experienced, Mickey Whelan was one great guy for me.
Like that.
You do anything for him, you run through walls from and again we can think of the great teachers and coaches we had growing up, and we can remember the idiots as well,
Yeah.
Even the interviews that the Cork players used to give after the games last year, remember after the All-Ireland, it wasn't this stuck to the process or anything like that. It was real kind of free flowing, real. You could tell that they enjoyed playing for Keith Ricken. As you said, that's what they're going to remember years from now. Do you know what I mean?
Did you hear Jim Gavin giving Ciarán Kilkenny's Man of the Match award speech after the Kerry game?
No.
It was like listening to Jim talk. But,
straight out of the Gavin playbook.
Ciarán Kilkenny's interview.
I
did.
And then Desi Farrell happened to outdo Jim Gavin in the interview afterwards, which I didn't think possible.
I didn't hear the Desi's part. But
Desi's desperate. I think Ciarán Kilkenny got so boring. He said at the end of the Kerry match that he was looking forward to the winter. Did you hear him at the end of that? I was like, what's he talking about? It doesn't make any sense. Right, listen lads, we've gone way over time. We'll come back with Ciarán Sheehan. Alright, so Ciarán Sheehan is back from Oz. He's back on the Cork team and he joins us on the show now. Welcome home, Ciarán.
Thanks very much, Colin. Thanks for having me on.
No bother at all. Come here, how are you settling back in? You're back a while now.
Back a while now, yeah. We came back in the start of October last year, so settling in quite well now. I came back at a good time there, Aero, where my club were in the latter stages of the county, so got to join up with those lads and ended up getting the county medal, which was a great start to the move back home.
Not too bad.
Definitely settling well.
Very good. I'd say even coming on the first game back with the club, you were nervous.
Oh, absolutely. I was nervous before I even got home because I knew we'd be kind of still going at that stage. But look, I suppose it's kind of one of those fairy tale things because I suppose like even any of the lads that are out in Australia at the moment, they think about, you'd be thinking about playing with their club all the time, and coming home and winning the county is kind of like what's going through your mind a lot of the time out there, to be honest with you. And to experience that, look, I'm very fortunate, but it was a great experience now, I must say.
Right, and you thought about Gaelic football a lot while you were out there, because you were out there for a long time, and I was reading a quote that said, from the moment I flew out of Dublin Airport, that's out there, I thought about playing with Cork again, and you watched all of Cork's matches when you're out there. You didn't kind of disconnect at all.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things, like you grow up loving the game, and then all of a sudden you're stepping away from it, but it still consumes your mind an awful lot. As I said, look, the minute I left Dublin, you're thinking about, playing with Cork again. Will it happen? Won't it happen? But like as I said there, I kind of kept an eye on all the games from over in Australia. I was watching on GAA there, and it's hard to tune yourself out from it after being so close to it for so long. But look, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't wishing that I'd get another crack at it, another chance of playing, wearing the right jersey. And look, I've been lucky enough that the body has got itself to a position now where I can compete to some level anyway, at inter-county level. So I've been lucky, very lucky, and absolutely it's just great to be back playing.
Yeah, because so when you finished up with Carlton, you didn't actually come directly home. I'm just wondering why you didn't do that, because you're 30 this year, you would have been 28 that year. What was the thinking behind not coming directly home?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the big things, I suppose, was the lifestyle out in Australia. Myself and my wife Amy there, we had experienced the kind of lifestyle from, I suppose, it's kind of, when you're a professional athlete out there, a lot of your time is consumed by, trying to achieve, the ultimate and trying to, get a contract year in, year out, and it's all your focus is on the, the sporting side of things. And look, to be fair, we got to experience some of the lifestyle, but then I suppose when the contract finished up there, we said this is a wonderful opportunity now for us to really experience kind of Melbourne, Australia for what it is. And look, we had a couple of years there. I got a wonderful opportunity working with the AFL Players Association in the player development space, and that was something I'm really passionate about, and that experience was phenomenal. So look, things kind of fell into place for us when the contract finished up. And look, we saw it as a kind of an opportunity for two of us to kind of, experience Australia from a different point of view then.
Right, okay. And I suppose, was that a good way to transition back into working life? Because I'm sure coming from a professional, a professional lifestyle back to GAA and back to working, you kind of bridged that gap in a way, have you?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I went back, and as I said there, I worked with the AFL Players Association. I was alumni program manager there, worked with a lot of the past players and dealing a lot with the transition out of the game. With a lot of the players, face a lot of issues when they're transitioning out of the game. And I got kind of good exposure to that as well. Sat down with fellas and had good conversations around, what their plan looked like after football. And I really enjoyed that side of it. As you said there, it's probably makes the transition from my own kind of career out that bit easier as well, a bit of more understanding of how it all works, and to be able to have that connection to sport as well in my job straight out from playing football was important for me to be able to adapt to that working life, because you still have some sort of a connection to the footballing world as well. So absolutely, look, it was a fabulous experience. Like 2 years of working with elite athletes there, from a personal well-being side of things and a personal development side of things. So it was it was a dream job for me at the time.
Yeah. So how does the conversation go when you're leaving beautiful Melbourne to come back to rainy Cork because you want to play football? What's your wife saying? Listen, you might want to play football, but I don't want to play football.
Yeah, look, it was that conversation actually went quite smoothly, surprisingly. My wife has been kind of with me all the way. She came out to Australia with me at the time, and she's kind of been through it all as well. So, we had that 2 years there where we spent some great time there just exploring Australia, and I think we got to a point in our lives as well where we were saying, we wanted to come back to Ireland at some stage, and the timing felt right. We got married the previous December, and we kind of said that let's go home now. Let's try to build a career for ourselves back home now while we can. I took that angle anyway. The footballing side came in later after that. But look, I suppose I had a couple of years left in the body. Look, from my own perspective, and I feel like now is the time to come in and cash in that time that I have left. So. Look, it was a part of the decision making, certainly, but the stronger part of it was kind of coming home and building a career for ourselves, professionally as well. Yeah,
and moving back home. And come here, you're back on the team already. This is good going for a man who spent so long away.
Look, it's been really okay for myself. I've been very lucky, as I said before. There, like Aero, my club, asked me to come on straight away, and I was delighted to just be a part of it and be able to have some sort of an impact. But then I suppose the conversation progressed after that with Ronan and his team there with Cork, and look, I was only delighted to be involved. As I said, I felt like I had something to give, but look, time will tell, I suppose, with it. It's still the early stages of the year. Hopefully I can add some sort of an impact anyway, be it on or off the field. But so far so good. Look, we've had a couple of good wins, a good start to the league, and hopefully that continues.
Yeah, exactly. I think I was reading a quote where you're saying that Ronan was really good with you. He wasn't putting you under any pressure, and I think that's one thing I talk about on the show of players that come back from Australia. Everybody thinks these lads are going to be unbelievable and we're saved, such and such is back. It puts a lot of pressure maybe on the player that's coming back.
Yeah, look, I'm big on this. I think it's a slow process. You kind of have to be patient with it, and I think that your attitude towards it is the biggest. If you can get the right mind frame going back, that look, this may take time. And Ronan definitely took that approach, and he said, look, patience is a massive thing. If it comes earlier than later, then great. If it doesn't, then we're willing to bide our time and wait for it to happen. And he's been outstanding with that side of things, and even the high performance staff here in Cork, Kevin Smith and Cian O'Neill, and have been really understanding with like the load management and what I need to do to get back to that level, and that's had a massive impact on me and my approach to actually getting back in there, because look, obviously enough, any guy that does come back in and wants to play at that level, you're very eager and you want to play straight away. So there is an element of holding back a little bit and being patient and hopefully that it does come then after that.
You definitely picked a very good time to leave Gaelic football, because we went through 5 or 6 years of very, very defensive football, and it's starting to turn back around now where the teams are being a little bit more offensive and kicking the ball a little bit more. So I'm sure you're out there in Australia saying, I'd love to be back playing, but I'm not sure if I'd like to be on a full forward line with 2 sweepers covering me.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm still finding it, a bit of a challenge. It's still a lot different to when I left, I think, in terms of the way the ball's moved, the kind of fluency of it. But I think, what people are having a crack now. It's certainly different. Like, we played Donegal there in 2012 that year, and we lost them the semi-final, and that was an issue for us, was that ball movement into the full forward line. No, I think it certainly has changed. I think teams got fitter forward, like your typical corner forward, as fit as your wing forward these days. Like, they have to be in order to create space and create some movement in the forward line. So I think it's one of those things that, with the game progressing, the high performance is improving, sports science, everything's improving. So the athletes are getting better and bigger and stronger. So it's one of those things that, the game has to open up because of the fitness levels at this point. So I've enjoyed kind of trying to find my way in that kind of space. But it seems to be going okay so far. I suppose the real test is in the heat of battle in championship, and we'll see how that goes then.
Yeah, and I suppose the biggest culture shock for you would be attacking full back lines.
Yeah, that's a bit of a struggle, all right, I'll be honest. Coming back outside the 45 is a bit unknown territory there. But look, it's great to see. It's great for the game. I think, with a full back there coming up to get a score, ends up, up in the other in their forward line. It's great to see. Not so great if you're on the receiving end and the full back takes off. No. But I kind of really enjoy it. I think that the best teams relish that sort of, intensity. The best forward lines relish getting a turnover or hunting them on the attack, and I think that's what we're trying to do there, is just relish that side of things, and hopefully it does translate into games in at the important stages of the year.
Yeah, well, tire him out so he doesn't have the energy to run up, maybe, or something like that. But like, are you almost learning the game all over again? Yeah,
there's certainly an element to that. Look, I suppose, like, as I said, I can't speak highly enough of the group of lads that are there at the moment. Every one of them that's been there has pulled me aside. Look, you have to be open to feedback as well, and I found when I came in, like, I was kind of trying to ask guys, am I doing the right thing? Do I need to be in a certain position at a certain time? And the lads have been great. Like, I've played with a lot of lads that are still there, like Mark Collins, and like I've played with Mark since I was very young, and he's been outstanding for me. Brian Hurley, these lads that I've played with before, look, it's not just a case of Ronan being patient, it's a case of kind of the group kind of knowing the position I'm in and being patient with kind of my development as well, and they've been outstanding in terms of helping me through that side of things as well. So credit to them. Look, I'm learning a lot more from them, I suppose, than what they would be learning from me. So it's just getting as much out of myself as I can off the back of that.
Yeah, exactly. Come here, how would you look back at your AFL career? Like, I didn't realise it until I was reading about it, how you were how affected you were by injury. I knew you had made it and you'd gotten onto the team early, and then you kind of went away, and I don't know at home here were your injuries as publicised, are publicised as bad as they were.
Yeah, look, I did run into a bit of misfortune right from the injury side of things. Look, I had eight operations in my 4 years on a list, and look, if you're trying to balance that, it's always going to be tough. But I think the key there, like, it would look like Zach Tui there, who's had, he's been so consistent with injuries and stuff. Yeah. He hasn't got any injuries. He's been on the ground every week, and that's the real key to being successful, I think, from an Irish point of view. Actually, from all players' point of view, when you're playing AFL, is just that consistency of performance. And being out in the track training, and Zach's proven that. And look, I suppose when I look back at my own career, I suppose, like, I had a lot of regrets too. So look, and I had a couple of injuries. I'm not going to beat around the bush that held me back, but at the same time, I had opportunities that I probably didn't take as well. Look, I suppose we had 3 coaches in the space of 4 years as well, which is unheard of for an AFL team. There was a lot of change going on. There was a change in culture nearly every year. The most previous manager I had, Brennan, both, and like we didn't exactly have the greatest relationship either. So it was just a series of a few different events. I look back and say, look, it was an amazing experience in terms of the career itself. Look, it was a disappointment from what I wanted to achieve. But look, it was, as I said, it was a massive experience from a personal point of view, which has kind of, I suppose, added to my own character from that sense. And I'm really happy. I have no regrets of the decision I made. Maybe a few regrets on the performance side of things.
Right. So, just to give people an idea of, the injuries that you had. So, you played 14 games VFL in your first year, and then you played your first AFL game. Was it at the end of that season as well? You were over at the end of 13, and then in 14 you made the breakthrough. Then in 15 you started getting a pain in your pubic bone. You ended up having to get both hips, surgery done in both hips. Then you came back in 2016 and you got a stress fracture in your foot. And then you had to go back in for more surgery on one of your hips, and that kept you out of 2016. You came back and you did your knee, you did your lateral ligament, and you ruptured your hamstring tendon off the bone. Yeah. Holy shit. Christ, I'd be gone home long ago if I was you, Ciarán. And then
you've got homework done there, yeah.
And then, you come back in 2017, and it was something you were saying it was 8 operations over 4 years.
Yeah, it was. Look, 2017 was probably my best year. That was my last year, and I had an injury, uninterrupted pre-season in terms of injury, and got a good run, and ended up playing a couple of games towards the back end of the year. But my body was in a great position at the end of 2017, and look, I wanted to continue playing at kind of a high level there as well. And I played a semi-pro level over as well for that 2 years that I was working with the AFL Players Association.
All right.
Look, I kept the body in good shape, when it came to that, and I always kind of thought that if there was a sniff of a chance of playing with Cork again, that I'd have to be keeping myself in some bit of shape. So that was kind of a part of it as well. But look, as you said there is a list of injuries there, but you grow as a person off the back of injuries. And I went through some dark times. Everyone knows the drill there when you're injured, like being in a rehab room on your own. Wondering what am I doing here? But I suppose the biggest thing that I kind of look back on and the advice I give is just always ask yourself the question, why? Why am I here? Why am I doing it? And look, I always had the answer that kind of drove me, and that's what kept me going, really.
Yeah, there can't really be regrets because it's your body kind of letting you down. But I had injuries throughout my career at the worst times, missing big games, and I always think back, geez, if I hadn't got them, and Zach is a great example, because I look at Zach going, geez, you don't know how lucky he doesn't know how lucky he is, never being injured. He's just he's a bit of a freak athletically. But the thing that I see here, you had 2 years where you didn't have injuries, and you made the senior team in both years. Do you know what I mean? So there must be a bit of frustration there. You were able to get on that team. It's just your body didn't give you the chance.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, yourself, it is very frustrating. I standard set for myself. You go over there with the idea that you'll make it as a pro, and long term. Look, the average career is 6 years. I'm 2 years short of that. So look, it is a ruthless industry, and the game itself is very, very physical. I haven't seen any game like it. Even you're covering 14, 15K in a game, and you're doing that week in, week out for 22 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's on top of the impact, and you're off the ball wrestling. There's so much to the game that's different from the Gaelic football side of things. There is transferable skills. Sorry,
Ciarán. So were your injuries, like the knee injury and things like that, big, as a result of the physicality of it, or was it just the wear and tear of the grueling nature of it?
Yeah. I think that the hip injuries themselves and the foot injury, that was more load management. I was just increased load in terms of what I had been doing back here, and it was just the running, that the running increased no end, and the body just broke down. When it came to the knee and the hamstring injury, that was kind of a free tax, going back with the flight of the ball and someone coming from behind didn't see him and got a knee into the side of the leg and thought it was a dead leg, and got a scan the next morning just as a precaution, and the hamstring was off the bone. So it was one of those kind of freak incidents. But in terms of the physicality side of things, it was nothing to do with that. It was more just the load increase that kind of my body broke down. And this is my point around, guys going out at an older age, and the Australian club seem to be doing that more now. It would be a bit of a worry from my end in terms of how your body's developing. Like your main developmental stage would be between 18 and 20, and I think that's a crucial time that guys need to go out to for their bodies to develop and adapt to how the game's played, how the physicality of it, the running capacity, all that sort of stuff. Between that age of 18 and 20, that's where you get your most benefit from. Now, I'm not saying if you do grow a bit older, that things won't work out for you. But what I'm saying is I think you have a better chance of really making it and pushing on between the age of 18 and 20. Right. Look, and that's just from experience, my own experience, I suppose. And I don't know if Tommy Walsh feels the same about it, but he went out a little later. And so, look, I suppose anyone can say that, you could go out at 24, 25 and make it too. It's just off the back of what I've experienced and what I've seen. I think that the prime age there is between 18 and 20.
Well, we were talking about that on the show with Cathal McShane. He's 24, and I was thinking by the time he does his 2 years kind of rookie, learns the game properly, then maybe he's 26. He might only have 4 years ever playing. That's if everything goes perfectly according to plan, which they never, very rarely do. Yeah. He's obviously decided not to go out. Probably the right decision in your experience, then.
Look, I suppose it's very hard for me to. I think if someone wanted to go for it, it's very, you have to focus on the individual. What are the individual circumstances? Yeah. What are their goals? What do they want to do? What do they want to achieve? So it'd be kind of wrong for me to kind of say if you should or shouldn't have went. But what I can say is I think that if you are going out a little bit later, maybe the odds are a little less against you. And that's kind of that would be my view on it anyway.
Yeah, okay, come here, I'm not going to keep you much longer. You have Down next. There are obviously some lovely memories for you. It's in Division 3, which is a funny one for you to play Down, after 2010. It's now in Division 3. There's no doubt you just have to get out of Division 3 and that's it. I'm sure Down are thinking the same thing, especially with this Tier 2 after coming in.
Yeah, I think it's a big focus for us. We knew it, I think, from the start. It was it's something that we kind of, it's a place we don't want to be. Let's be honest. I don't think it's a place that anyone wants to be, and we're working hard. We're taking every game as it comes. Every opposition is the same for us. We've got a set structure and plan in place. Look, it takes a bit of time to develop, but that's only natural. We've got a lot of younger guys on the squad as well. But absolutely, look, we're going out to win every game. Our goal for now is to get out of Division 3. But that means scaling it back and taking every game as it comes. But it's exciting to match up against Down again. I think obviously we played them in the league the year after as well, the National League up there in Newry, and we came away with a win, and that was a great battle as well. So. Traditionally, I suppose any experience I've had of Down, we beat them in under 21 All Ireland final as well. So we've had some good battles with them. So I'm really looking forward to it. Going down to Park of Cleeve now that the pitch is in great condition at the moment, and hopefully people come and have a look and see the exciting talent, I suppose, that's coming through in Cork football. Yeah,
exactly. Listen, well, best of luck with it, Ciarán, and best of luck for the year. It's good to have you back. Thanks for taking the call.
Thanks very much, Colin. I appreciate it. Thanks a million.
All right, so predictions. And I'm going to make no apologies for saying that we're concentrating on Division 1 games this week because they are the most interesting. There's no doubt about that. We have Dublin, Monaghan, we've Donegal, Galway, we've Tyrone, Kerry. They're the three big games of the weekend. You could argue Armagh, Kildare is a very big game in Division 2 with a lot of pressure on it, and Cork versus Down in Division 3 as well, which is a lot of pressure on that and probably a top of the table clash. I want to start off with Monaghan, lads, against Dublin, because we speak about Dublin all the time, but Monaghan are very interesting, and I didn't really realise that Monaghan were very interesting until I started doing a little bit of research into them and looking through their team, and I couldn't believe it. So their team against the last day against Tyrone, they had Kieran Duffy, Conor Boyle and Ryan Wiley in the full back line. Conor Boyle and Kieran Duffy. Kieran Duffy's played as a third midfielder. Conor Boyle has played as a half back. Look at this half back line. Carl O'Connell, Desi Ward, Michael Bannigan. Desi Ward is a wing forward. Michael Bannigan plays in a full forward line for DCU, if I'm not mistaken. He's played corner forward, he's played centre forward, and we know what Carl O'Connell's like. So immediately that's jumping out at me going, holy shit, what a half back line. Now I'm getting excited about Monaghan, right? So then you have Darren Hughes and Niall Kearns who are in midfield, and they sit. We know Darren Hughes does that a lot, kind of plays the Colin Kavanagh role and drops back. Kearns is doing that as well, allowing these three attacking players to attack from the half back line. Half forward line, then you have Ryan McInnesby, who does a all over the field job. Dermot Malone, the other wing, who does an all over the field job. Conor McCarthy, then Jack McCarron, Kieran Hughes, Conor McManus, all stay up front. What a lovely attacking Banty. What about that? Like, I mean, we know Banty isn't. I thought Monaghan were going stale under Malachy O'Rourke and did a terrible year last year, and they needed this fresh input. And that's definitely a new way of looking at it. And here's a stat from Cara O'Kane, from the Irish News. Different scorers, Division 1 teams, and different scorers throughout their teams after the first two games. Monaghan have 13 different scorers. Kerry have 12, Galway have 12, Donegal have 11, Dublin have 10, Tyrone have 10, Mayo 9, Meath 7. Monaghan 13 different scorers. They're attacking from all over the field. They're using their midfielders to drop back Ger instead of maybe a half back. They're picking practically three forwards in the half back line. This is bringing the game on to a new level altogether. Maybe not, I'm exaggerating it a little bit, but picking arguably three forwards in your half back line.
It's obviously Banty was there before, and there's a couple of guys that are probably still part of the squad, and I think it's important to bring a freshness to the setup. I think Malachy O'Rourke, fully agree with you. He stayed a year too long, and it is hard to motivate fellas. I think, did he do 6 years, 7 maybe in the end?
Yeah, one or two.
So, there's only so much you can get across the fellas. Guys will become tired despite their their personal motivation. You just get tired listening to the same fella. So Banty's obviously coming in. He's giving the lads something new to work on, which will kind of whet the appetite and give them something to focus on. It's still very, very early days in the league. Guys are still kind of getting back to fitness or whatever, trying to figure things out. So it's hard to buy into some of the results sometimes, but
it's definitely it's a departure. If he's leaving the four forwards up, which is Jack McCarron, Kieran Hughes, Conor McManus and Conor McCarthy.
Kieran Hughes
goes out to
well, he got a red the other day, did he? He
got a red, yeah. But I think a couple of lads got black cards, so he ended up going back out around the midfield and stuff like that to cover. But if you've got those four forwards staying up, they don't want to track, they don't want to go back, and they can get marks. They have different. Jack McCarron. Now, Jack McCarron in big games, I'm not sure if he shows up enough for me, but Conor McManus we know does. Kieran Hughes is a complete handful, and Conor McCarthy, being left as a forward without defensive duties, we know he has a wand of a left foot, as you know well.
Yeah, so with Conor in UCD for probably 5 years, and he's with the IT then doing his masters this year. So I think Conor, I would say, he didn't discuss this with me, but knowing him and watching him play for Monaghan and UCD, I think his confidence was probably knocked a bit the last couple of seasons, because he was being taken off far more frequently than some of the other lads. Now, Jack McCarron had some great league campaigns, and I would agree went missing in some of the bigger games in Championship. And the way Malachy O'Rourke, for me, was setting up the forward line, it was Kieran McManus plus one. I was either McCarron or McCarthy, and McCarron was just ahead. But I think with McCarthy being given game time now, I hope he gets a good few games.
Where's his best position? He's played 11 there, but
11 for me is his best position, because he is an excellent distributor of the ball, and he's also well able to kick scores outside the left, inside the left. So if the pass is on, he'll give it. He has good vision, but he's also well able to take his own score as well.
Yeah. Now they hammered Tyrone, and they went to Salt Hill, and were only pipped by Galway, who went down to Tralee and were very unlucky not to beat Kerry. Do you know what I mean? So this has been a very good start, and I think we all predicted Monaghan to go down. I'm changing that prediction.
So you mentioned that to me
I'm sticking Mayo into that.
I think I had Mayo to win the league final again.
You did not, did you? Oh Jesus!
Hold on, we'll see how things go now this weekend.
No, but I've changed my mind, because looking through that team, there's a huge freshness to that now, and the age profile isn't that old. Do you know? And it's just they seem like they're a very offensive looking team now.
Yeah, I think that's a good point about the
Colin
age.
Walsh isn't even mentioned in there.
It's a good point about the age profile, because I think the inclination, certainly for me last year, was because the way just the season went last year, as Ger said, Malik O'Rourke stayed on a season too long, but because when you had the likes of Desi Moan and Vinnie Corey stepping aside as well, there was a feeling there that like this is the natural end of this great Monaghan team for maybe the last 5 or 6 years. But when you look through that, then the age profile is actually, as you said, quite good. And when you mentioned the spread of scorers there as well, just Jack McCarron got a free. Conor McManus, who apparently, like, I only saw the highlights and just read a match report, wasn't that much of a feature, and which is very strange when you consider how integral Conor McManus has been to Monaghan over the years.
Yeah.
And
He's also 34, so
McManus is just so accurate.
Exactly,
he could play for as long.
But that's it. But like the spread of scorers coming from elsewhere in the team and not being so reliant on McManus and kind of the lads around him, and especially when you're putting the likes of Michael Bannigan back in the half back line, it's a completely different. It's going to be a completely different Monaghan team, I think, to what we've been used to kind of seeing over the last few years.
Apparently they kicked the ball a lot against Galway because it was that type of game. Against Tyrone they couldn't do that because Colm Kavanagh was dropping back, so they ran it a little bit more. So there's that little bit of flexibility with their game plan as well, which every team should have a running game and a kicking game. It makes I keep saying on the show, what kind of sense does it make to have only one way of playing? How easy is that to defend against? When you can mix things up, that's when that's when you can really hurt teams.
Listen to Banty talking after the game. He said he's very pleased with the performance because they were trying a couple of different tactical and structural things playing against the Tyrone defence, and he's very happy with those how those things worked out. So he's obviously trying to get guys to be able to evolve and think on their feet. The long ball's on, give it. If it's not, let's use your smarts.
Am I right in saying as well that Monaghan got Peter Donnelly in as an S&C coach?
I think he did, yeah. They have him in there,
which is probably a big coup.
Which is a big coup. And one thing Banty will have is that old school, get feckin' stuck into them.
Yeah,
and Monaghan have that naturally anyways. They have that, you kind of know the level of aggression and intensity you're going to get from them. They don't usually drop off that kind of thing. It was Kieran Duffy was nominated for an All-Star. He got something like 3 or 4 goals in a season. He's cornerback. Conor Boyle has scored 2 points in the first 2 games. It was him, remember, saying he just ran completely up the field unmarked against Galway, and he got another one against Tyrone. Carl O'Connell got a point. Desi Ward got a point. Michael Bannigan, I didn't know much about him, but he's an out and out forward playing wing back. Absolutely very excited about Monaghan, I have to say. Desi Moan had a quote. I was pulling this up on Twitter yesterday because he said, they've done well against Dublin in the league, but that's not going to tell them too much. He said, I always thought that Monaghan had the players and the matchups for this Dublin team for the last couple of years. That's why I would have liked if we got through that 2018 All-Ireland semi-final. You know, the one they lost to Tyrone and then played. Like, they lost the 2017 quarter-final to Dublin, 1-19 to 12 points. It was a bloodbath. Now, they came through the qualifiers that year, I think, but at the same time,
they better in the league that year, I think.
In the last 4 meetings in the league, Monaghan have won 2, and the other 2 have been like a point or something, but like Monaghan playing Dublin in the league is like an All-Ireland final to Monaghan, and it's another league game to Dublin. I don't like
the first game of the season last year.
It was, with the mark up there.
One of them was in Croke Park when Dublin had already qualified for the league final.
That was another one. That was the other one. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Like, I mean, it's very obvious, Jared, that they're using that as confidence. I have no problem with that. This is Dublin in the league. Let's try and beat them. And you wouldn't even say that. You would know that Dublin might not be at the pitch you're at, but still you've beaten them. Desi Moan has himself convinced that he would love to get them in an All-Ireland final based off league games, not even based off the championship hammering they took. Do you know what I mean? But it's easy to convince players, I suppose. That's sports psychology, right?
Yeah, Desi's probably been a bit speculative. If Monaghan were to go out this season and try to do the same thing again, they'll end up with the same result. They'll get through a lot of games, but they lose against the better teams. And again, that's what happened with Malik O'Rourke last year. But what Banty's trying to introduce him, again, the fact that they played one way against Galway, and obviously Galway being more offensive, there was going to be a couple of holes in their own defence if they were turned over. So Monaghan tried to kick it in, and the last day against Tyrone, who were generally more defensive, they were happy to be patient in their build-up and be smart in possession. But Dublin, I can only see Dublin winning. So I know I'm not jumping onto the predictions yet, but it's hard based on how Dublin have gotten on the last 2 games. It's hard to see them lose against Monaghan, but at the same time, Monaghan, that fast running game, guys exploding from the half back line, cornerbacks.
They can hurt Dublin with that team.
Exactly, and the hard ground in Croke Park then as well. Again, Croke Park is the same surface all year round. So
yeah, no, exactly. I'd agree with that. Dublin for me, but Monaghan can definitely hurt them. This will be a very exciting game. Would you agree in a word, Conor? We move on.
Dublin.
Donegal, Galway lads. We know that I have a thing about Galway. Their team announced already, and Sean Mulkerran, their full back, who actually is from the Aran Islands, lads, which is incredible, and he's in NUIG, so during the year that's fine. During the summer he goes back to the Aran Islands, to back home for the summer, like all students kind of do, and he works there, and he has to commute for training, and the commute involves a ferry and an overnight stay in Galway and coming back on the ferry the next morning. It's incredible stuff, isn't it?
That's commitment.
Yeah, so I was trying to find out what the story is. Sean Mulkerran, we all know Sean Andy O'Callig was the big centre back or full back for Galway under Kevin Walsh, and my information is that Pádraig Joyce doesn't fancy Sean Andy, and I can see why. Like, Sean Andy is like probably a bit of a crowd favourite, and he's a big burly fella. He loves to go on kind of trips up the field, and you could find him anywhere, but he's not a good man marker, and he's, to be honest, his football brain wouldn't, you wouldn't, I think he's all physique and all inspiration, whereas what his football brain position wise or marking wise, he might be suspect. Apparently Joyce he's not being picked. Declan Kine's gone off the panel, and he was a regular in the full back line. Joyce doesn't fancy him either. And I was asking about Owen Cairns as well, the cornerback, and I'm not really too sure about him or where he is. But he has Sean Kelly and Johnny Heaney, the two cornerbacks. This is a departure. Like, Sean Kelly, he was wearing number 10, but he's been playing kind of wing back, but he's not a cornerback. So it just goes to show where Galway's heads are at, especially potentially playing Donegal, who will be against me. Donegal dropped an awful lot of players back into the midfield area. They pressed up in the kick out, then dropped back. And Mulkerran was talking about Joyce's philosophy, and he says his philosophy is simple, really. You get the ball and you move forward. He always says the ball is the fastest thing that will travel on the pitch, so that's what we're trying to implement. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. All makes perfect sense to me. Move the ball fast to beat the retreating players. That's fine. But I suppose against a team like Donegal, unless they can get the ball down there and be very aggressive, which they are, they will be finding a sweeper and make it more difficult for themselves. And
they'll be finding 2 and even 3 sweepers. And what Donegal did against Meath, and seeing the highlights and listening to the review on Monday with Colin Kelly and Colin, they're so good at just sprinting back if they're not getting the kick out. And it's just the way they set up, and they like to break from the half back line. And Donegal are going to do the same thing again. It'll be a big challenge to the Galway players and the Pádraig Joyce. What's he going to do this week tactically? Is he going to get them to be more patient? Obviously play the offensive play if it's on, but if it's not on, you can't be running down blind alleys. And what Donegal are great at doing is sucking you into that little middle part channel of the field, and then 4 or 5 big Donegal men will just turn you over and off they go. So it'll be a challenge to the Galway players, and I think it's up in Letterkenny as well. I know there's 3 pitches there. They used to bring us up to Ballyshannon, which anybody familiar with the Dublin leagues, St Jude's pitch in Twyman North and the St Anne's and Born-a-Breed, like had a hill on both halves, so you're playing the hill both halves. Those pitches. Ballyshannon used to be like that. I think it still is. Yeah, so it'd be tough up there up in Letterkenny.
Yeah, usually it's Ballybuffet.
It's such a good record in Ballybuffet.
Letterkenny.
I don't think they've lost a league game there in like 10 years or something like that.
I don't know why.
Drawn them twice.
I tell you, they're playing the percentages. I know they probably talk about, well, we want to move such a big county, we move around with 3 county grounds. We have 3 county grounds, but Donegal will be thinking Galway. They like to play some nice football based on what we've seen so far. So let's bring them miles away onto a lesser pitch than Ballybuffet. Is definitely the better of the 3 fields. But
it'd be a good trek from Galway to Letterkenny as well. Yeah, probably 3.5, 4 hours, I'd say too. So just to add to it, but
it wouldn't be that much.
Well,
you know the West. I'm not going to pull you up in the West. We were talking about this on Monday. Galway can't fall into the same trap as Meath and go short with their kickouts and allow Donegal head back. Sure, what's the point of that? They ruined their wind advantage by not getting it down the field. If Donegal are pressed up, Galway go long from all their kickouts. Galway can then use their kick passing game and move that ball in fast before Donegal can get set up correctly. And I think that's where Donegal can really hurt, or Galway can really hurt Donegal. I'm interested to see this from a tactical point of view, to see, you know, if I start seeing the Galway goalkeeper kicking it out short, and then Galway trying to play a kicking game when Donegal are back, I'd be like, Jesus, this makes no sense. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if they go along with all their kickouts and avoid the Donegal press and then play their nice football, I'd be like, that's smart.
Yeah.
If you were to substitute Galway into Park Tolchin last weekend for that first half, where Mead, I can't think of the corner forward, he kicked a lovely point, first ball in, off his right foot. He just got a ball in, he turned.
Sorry, who's that?
Mead, corner forward. The first point the last day.
Killian O'Sullivan.
Not Killian O'Sullivan. Another fair-haired fella.
Thomas O'Reilly.
Thomas O'Reilly. I think the possession that Mead had in the first 20 odd minutes with the wind in Park Tolchin, a Galway team, based on how they're playing, will have far more scores on the board.
You'd imagine that,
which would draw Donegal out. Whereas because Mead hadn't got so many scores on the board, Donegal were comfortable in playing their system and trusting the system and knowing that we will create opportunities, which they obviously did.
Yeah, exactly. Come here, we'll get a prediction on this quickly. I'll go for a draw here. Two teams I like. Obviously Galway I love, but the home advantage is weighing up the draw there.
I'm going to go Galway just.
Galway just.
I'm going to go with a draw.
Yeah. Go with a draw as well. Yeah. Okay, right. Tyrone and Kerry next, lads, and we're talking about all the goal chances that Kerry gave up. We know Cathal McShane is back in for Tyrone. He comes straight back into the team as far as I'm concerned. All is forgiven. He'll cause Kerry problems. Like, I mean, Kerry the last day were missing Tyg Morley, Thomas Sullivan and Peter Crowley, who's back as well. Peter Crowley could be that holding stopper centre half back. Seamus Moynihan was talking, he was doing all the media yesterday because I think he was at that higher education launch, and he was talking about Peter Crowley potentially coming in and helping out the defence. I'm just wondering if, like, when Kerry picks such an offensive forward line, they're not going to get any help really defensively from their forward line, not too much. So where do they get the help from, Ger? Is it like a matter, like we said, about where are Kerry falling down defensively? Is it a matter of nobody's there to organise it? Nobody's organising it well? Nobody's telling one of the wing backs, don't follow, hold back? You know, is this an organisational thing on the field?
There was one or two of the league games last year where Kerry tried to play somewhat defensive, and it didn't really suit them. I think the first game down in the Fitzgerald Stadium,
against Tyrone, yeah.
So they like to play football. They like to push on. This is where a strong six for me would come into play, where you have a guy who's organising the troops, regardless of whether they're a corner forward or regardless of the number on their shirt. If Conor is wing forward and he's tracked all the way back to the corner back position, and our corner back has gone to the field, I'm going to say, Conor, hold the fort there. We need to keep one extra guy here in case we get turned over, and that you do have a defensive platform, so you're defending facing the play as opposed to defending, which Kerry have been doing a lot of the time, running towards your own goal, which is a dangerous position then to be in. So they've a lot of kind of man markers, the way Peter Keane seems to set them up.
Yeah, but they seem to be all given a job and they're all following their men.
That works to a point. Like, two or three fellas need man marking. You can give, for me, I wouldn't be giving more than maybe 3 man marking roles.
Yeah.
And other than that, then I'll be getting fellas to hold the position within reason. You know?
You're right on that, and obviously Owen Merchant's goal in the All-Ireland final replay came from everybody being too worried about their own man. Because at what point do you say with Merchant, shit, I'm leaving my man and going? And they were getting good at that because that's what Mayo are great at. They're great at sensing danger and saying, well, my man's not a problem here, I'm going to go help somebody else. Now, in their defence, if I'm watching that live, I think Moran just has him. He has him. Then all of a sudden he doesn't have him. But I suppose somebody needed to spot that danger and come across. Even if you have a man marking job, to come across and act like a sweeper in that position.
Had Owen Merchant never scored a goal in Championship football either?
See, that's the thing. I would be less critical of that because I didn't. If you're watching that live, you don't shout goal nearly until the goal's in the bloody net, don't you?
Let him have it because you probably think he's going to give it off to somebody else. But Tyg Morley, they analysed it fairly forensically after as well. Tyg Morley just left that split second. Owen Merchant is so fast, but Tyg Morley did come across, but it was just too late. But I'd let them off for that one. But there's a lot of incidents just like that. The 2 goals that All right, did Galway get 2 goals at the weekend? But they definitely had a number of goal chances where, similar to that, like a man didn't abandon his own man until the last second, and by that stage it was too late. Shane Welsh goal, and Johnny Heaney scored, obviously, and then they had another. Shane Ryan made a save then in the
O'Lee missed
from
a
Anton
chance,
O'Lee as well, and then going back
Comer
to
had 2 goal chances.
Damien Comer, Rory Dean against Cork for Cork against Kerry was a couple of years ago in the Munster final when Cork got 3 goals or 2 or 3 goals in the first few minutes as well. That was another example of, Kerry, their defenders will just have to realise that sometimes you just have to accept a point. A point is just the safer option rather than let somebody go on goal, and there hasn't been enough, and I think that's because of the absence of a leader. There hasn't been enough of that from Kerry, that they're not saying, listen, we just have to forget about your own man, forget if your man scores 3 points in the first half. If you prevented 2 goal chances because of that, well then that's the best way to go about it.
Just to share on that, right? So this is always the conundrum for fellas in the full back line. So I know as a forward where goal scoring was never a forte of mine. So I'm running through, bearing down on goal, and there's a full back line all marking their men. So now, if they stand off me and just keep standing off me, they make my life very easy. If one of them steps up, not rushes out to me, I'll just throw it over his head. That makes my decision easier. But if one of them kind of rushes me and then kind of doubles back, scares me into the pass. Now I'm giving a loopy one over his head. He could turn around potentially and surround the man that catches it. In a way, Kerry, how do you learn that? Or that's something you either have good defensive instincts or not, or is that coachable?
That's coachable.
It is.
And it's probably not being coached then based on the evidence. And I think the fault is probably the wrong word, but the responsibility in that case. And actually listen to, you referenced Ciarán McGeaney in the last piece where obviously Laois bet in the weekend. But he took responsibility for whatever they did during the week and how he hadn't set up, it didn't work. But Peter Keane has to take responsibility that in the same way, it doesn't matter who puts the ball over the bar. Once you win, the man in the best position gets the ball. It doesn't matter who's defending who. If your guy is stopped, you've got to cover the goal. Yeah. If your guy is going to get a point, you've got to cover the goal to stop a goal, and we concede 1 as opposed to conceding 3. Owen Morton's goal was a case of the Dublin defence, Dublin forwards cleverly drew their men out. Like Donegal, this was in the semi-final 2014.
But is that not a point where you go, he's moving out there, he's no danger, I'm not going to fall for that? So, do you know what I mean? Is that not a defender going, I know what he's doing here?
So what is influencing the defender to make that decision? What's expected and what has been communicated to the defender before the match is what is going to influence him. So if you're doing a man marking job on Ciarán Sheehan, if he only gets 1 or 2 points, you've done a great job. Don't be worrying about anyone else. And therefore your game sense is retracted, or it's just put in a box and you don't even think about it because you're just marking your own man, someone else's job. So I think when you coaches go out and give just a specific role without giving a fella an opportunity to use his game intelligence,
use his brain,
you're marking Woolley, don't let him get the ball as best you can. However, if Ger goes on his arse, you got to get back and cover him because Ger's man's going to get a goal. So that is coachable, and most instinctive defenders would have that ability, but it can be coached out as well. Owen Morton's goal, then we would have worked in a couple of setups with Cluck over the years, and Michael Savage with St Vincent as well. In that situation, if I was Tyg Morley, I would be timing when to step up, but I'd be waiting for the call from behind me, and I'm going to force the ball carrier. If you're coming through on goal, I'm going to force you to give a kind of a lob pass as best as possible, not let you go past me, and Cluck was going to come out
and clear it out.
Exactly.
Right. So you walk through these scenarios, like the 3 in there and just someone bearing down on goals.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other one coming in at the angle, then Clucks and Michael Savage were still are great shot stoppers that, regardless of who was taking the shot, as opposed to if I'm marking my man on the edge of the D and I go out to you and Conor pops the ball to the edge to my man and he palms it in, we took the percentage call where I'm actually going to stay my man, pretend to go, but I'm going to stay my man and force the ball carrier to shoot
from that angle.
From that angle,
right? Yeah. That's a very good call. Yeah. That's a good call. Have to say we never did any walkthroughs like that with any of my managers with Laois, but it's all coachable then, isn't it? And I suppose they are the things, exact things. And that's probably why after the Ireland final it all came out that Cluxton was looking at a laptop for 3 hours in the training, because he had in his head seen a scenario like that, and he didn't react to Spillan's goal like he thought he should have.
Yeah. Now I different horse for courses and Clucko and Johnny Cooper and a few other lads, they were all over that video analysis stuff. Myself and a few other lads, I watch it once, watch it twice. Yeah, happy enough. Move on, like, you know.
Yeah.
Some fellas love it, but
torturing themselves. Right, listen, boys. That's all we've time for. Like I said, the big one.
Did we predict there? That
What are we predicting here?
After all that, I'd still go Kerry.
You fancy Kerry?
Yeah. Well, I think if you look at Meade's result against Donegal, the couple of points that Tyrone bet me by, well, it was a 4 or 5, and I'd bet him. Maybe Tyrone aren't where we think they are, but McShane coming in, if he does start, will make a difference. So let's go with Kerry down there.
On Monday, we'll definitely cover Tyrone, and because we haven't talked about them yet, and we'll see what they're shaping up as. Like I said, the big one in Division 2 is Kildare and Armagh. And to be honest, I was thinking the loser of that is under big pressure, and they are under pressure. But I think 5 wins will get you out of Division 2. I think 4 wins, because they're all beating each other. Like 9 points could get you out of there. 4 wins and a draw and 2 losses. Do you know what I mean? It's such a dog-eat-dog one. So maybe there's not as much riding on that. Cork down, obviously, is that big one. You fancy Cork in Páirc Keeve. And in Division 4, Carlow are at home to Limerick. Carlow lose that, you'd imagine they're gone. The way Sligo are winning their games, Limerick would have been winning their games as well. So keep your eye out for those ones.
There's a big under 20 game, I think, in Wicklow against Dublin in Aughrim at 2 on Saturday.
Right, that started actually. Yeah,
and a lot of these Wicklow fellas bet Dublin in the minors a couple of years ago.
Right,
so that will be interesting.
Yeah, all right, okay. So they did. They had a great minor team under Kevin O'Brien, didn't they? So
Mayo Galway on Saturday under 20 as well. So
Mayo
Galway, big under 20 games. Yeah.
Okay, it's kind of completely flying under the radar, the under 20, isn't it?
Well, a great idea to put it in the middle of Sigerson and National League, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like Croke Park.
Well, that was a bizarre decision. All right, yeah, exactly. Listen, if we start on that chair, we could be here for another hour. Right, come here. We'll go and we'll talk to you on Monday in the review show. Talk to you then. Good luck.